You believe her respect is shown in her attention. The quick replies to your texts, the laughter at your jokes, the way she leans in when you speak. You've been taught to see these as signs, as currency you've earned, but this is the first and most critical illusion you must break. Her attention is often just a reflection of her interest, her politeness, or even her boredom. It is not respect. True respect is a much colder, heavier, and more silent thing. It's an involuntary reaction she has to your character, not a reward she gives for your performance. It's the difference between the man she enjoys for a moment and the man she can't get out of her mind. This is the quiet anxiety. You feel the gap between her pleasantness and a deeper, unspoken admiration you can't seem to secure. If this makes sense to you, subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share your thoughts below. The lie you've been living is that respect is a transaction. You think that if you are available enough, agreeable enough, and nice enough, she will deposit her admiration into your account. So you become the performer. You see her text and you drop everything, your heart beating a little faster, believing your quick response proves your value. You rearrange your world to fit into the small spaces she offers you, mistaking your flexibility for devotion. This behavior, this constant accommodation, sends a subconscious signal you cannot afford to send, that your time, your principles, and your world are secondary to hers. It doesn't build a foundation of respect. It builds a comfortable cage of convenience where she feels safe but not thrilled. You feel like you're doing everything right, yet you sense your presence has no weight, no gravity. Now, let's invert this. Think about the moments you've misinterpreted as failure. You state a boundary, a simple no, and a silence hangs in the air. It's not an angry silence. It's a moment of recalibration. You see a subtle shift in her eyes. You've been trained to read this as disapproval, a sign you've made a mistake. Your instinct screams at you to fill that silence, to apologize, to soften your stance and pull her back toward you. But you must understand what is truly happening here. She is not testing your kindness. She is testing your reality. She is subconsciously asking, is he solid, or is he just a reflection of what he thinks I want? This is the moment her mind quietly moves you from the category of entertaining boy to compelling man, or discards you completely. It all happens in that silence you are so afraid of. This reveals the central paradox of her respect. It is given most freely to the man who seems to care the least about receiving it. You've been chasing her attention, thinking it was the prize, when in fact it was the distraction, the constant back and forth, the analysis of her every word. It's a fog that keeps you from the real work. The man who commands her deep, instinctual respect is not the one who adapts to her world, but the one who has built a world so solid, so aligned with his own purpose, that she finds herself wanting to enter it. His power isn't in his words or his gestures, but in his stillness. It's in the calm certainty that his path is his own. Her respect is not something you win from her. It is something she gives to herself when she is in the presence of a man who has already validated himself. The lie you believe is that her silence is a verdict. You see her pull away the energy between you, thinning into a cold, empty space, and your mind immediately translates it as a personal failure. You think, I've lost her. This belief triggers a primal panic, a desperate urge to fix the connection, to fill the void with words, apologies, or grand gestures. Your actions become frantic, driven by the fear of her absence. You text more, you try harder, you become a whirlwind of anxious energy, trying to pull her back into an orbit she has already chosen to leave. You see her distance as a problem to be solved, a challenge to be overcome through sheer force of will. This is the fundamental error, the illusion that your effort can override her feeling. You're trying to argue with the tide, and in doing so, you only exhaust yourself and reveal your powerlessness. This frantic chase is rooted in a deeper, more insidious lie, that your value is determined by her presence. When she is near, you feel validated. When she is distant, you feel worthless. You have outsourced your sense of self to her. So when she creates space, you don't interpret it as her needing time to process her own world. You interpret it as a judgment on yours. This is why her silence feels so loud, so deafening. It's not just an absence of her voice. It's the screaming of your own insecurity. You believe her attention is the sun that gives you life, and without it, you are plunged into a cold, dark winter of self-doubt. This dependency is the very thing that suffocates her attraction. A woman cannot truly respect a man whose emotional world is a fragile ecosystem entirely dependent on her for its survival. Let's look at how this plays out. You state a boundary. Perhaps you say you're not available on a night, she suggests. For a moment, she goes quiet. The lie whispers in your ear. You've pushed her away. You were too rigid. Fix it. Your instinct is to immediately backtrack, to soften your stance, to offer an alternative, to show her that your boundary was not a wall, but merely a suggestion. You are terrified that your no has severed the connection. But what is actually happening in that silence? She is not rejecting you. She is recalibrating her understanding of you. She is witnessing the existence of your world, separate from her own. That silence is the sound of her subconscious mind processing a new, vital piece of data. You are not just an extension of her desires. The truth you must absorb is that her respect is not found in her agreement, but in her quiet contemplation of your integrity. When you hold your ground, not with aggression, but with a calm, unshakable certainty, you are not creating distance. You are creating dimension. You are showing her that you are a solid object, not a shadow that changes shape with the light she provides. The man who constantly bends to her will become predictable, comfortable, and ultimately boring. He is a safe harbor, but she secretly craves the open sea. Your unwavering frame, your commitment to your own principles, even at the risk of her temporary displeasure, is what builds the kind of deep, instinctual respect that her conscious mind cannot even articulate. Feeling a gravitational pull toward your center. This is why the nice guy so often feels invisible. He operates under the illusion that a constant stream of accommodation will build a bridge to her heart. He agrees when he disagrees. He says yes when his soul is screaming no. He becomes a perfect mirror, reflecting back everything he thinks she wants to see. He believes this harmony is a sign of connection, but it's an illusion. It is a connection with a ghost, a version of himself he has fabricated for her approval. She may appreciate his kindness, she may even enjoy his company, but she cannot respect a man she cannot find. She is looking for a man with edges, with a defined shape, someone whose reality she can push against and find solid. Your constant agreeableness feels like sinking into quicksand. So the chase, the constant effort to win her back, is not just ineffective, it is counterproductive. Every time you pursue her when she pulls away, you reinforce the very dynamic that pushes her away in the first place. You are screaming with your actions, "My peace depends on you." This pressure is immense. It forces her into the role of your emotional caretaker, a role that is the absolute antithesis of romantic desire. The only way to break this cycle is to do the one thing your fear is telling you not to do, nothing. You must let the silence be. You must hold your own frame. You must trust that your value is not in your ability to retrieve her, but in your ability to remain whole in her absence. This is the moment the boy who chases becomes the man who attracts. The hidden truth is that her withdrawal is not a rejection of you, but a subconscious test of your reality. When she creates distance, she is not pushing you away. She is stepping back to see if your world remains intact without her in the center of it. Her silence is a question she doesn't even know she is asking. Are you a fixed point in the universe? Or are you just a satellite in my orbit? This is the core mechanism you fail to see. You interpret her emotional shifts as a verdict on your worth, when they are actually an involuntary search for your foundation. She is instinctively looking for the man whose sense of self is not dependent on her approval, because her own emotional safety depends on finding that solid ground in you. She needs to know that when the storms of her own feelings arrive, you will not be swept away with her. This mechanism is not a conscious strategy. It is a deeply embedded primal instinct. A woman's nervous system is biologically wired to seek out stability. In a world of emotional chaos, both internal and external, she is subconsciously drawn to a man who represents order, calm, and an unshakable core. When she challenges you, whether with a pointed question, a sudden mood shift, or a period of silence, she is not trying to be difficult. Her instincts are stress testing your frame. It's her subconscious mind's way of asking, can he withstand pressure? Can he handle my emotional intensity without losing his own center? Your panicked reaction, your rush to appease her and close the distance, is a failed test. It signals to her on a primal level that you are not a safe harbor, but another ship tossed about in the same storm she is trying to escape. Think of yourself as a lighthouse and her as a ship navigating uncertain waters. The lighthouse's power does not come from chasing ships, nor from screaming at them to follow its light. Its power is in its absolute stillness, its unwavering presence, its commitment to its own position, regardless of the weather. The ship sees this consistent, predictable light from afar and uses it as a point of orientation to navigate safely. When you chase her, when you abandon your own post to pursue her, you cease to be the lighthouse. You become just another frantic vessel lost in the fog, and your value as a guide, as a point of stability, vanishes. Her respect is her silent, instinctual decision to orient herself by your light. But she can only do that if you remain steadfastly, unapologetically rooted in your own ground. This is why she tests you. A test is not a game, it is a probe sent out to find the limits of your reality. When she says something provocative or challenges a decision you've made, she is pushing against your world to see if it holds firm. The man who immediately crumbles, apologizes, or changes his position to regain her approval communicates that his reality is soft, negotiable, and ultimately not real. He reveals that his convictions are for sale at the price of her smile. The man who can hear her challenge, acknowledge it without reacting, and hold his position with quiet strength creates a powerful magnetic tension. He shows her that his world has its own gravity. This is the moment her respect crystallizes. It is not an intellectual choice. It is a visceral response to the presence of an undeniable force. What she fears most, on a level deeper than words, is a man who is a void, the man who agrees with everything, who has no boundaries, who molds himself entirely to her desires, feels like a black hole. He has no substance of his own, and she intuitively knows that if she gets too close, her own identity will be consumed by his neediness. Her retreat is an act of self-preservation. She pulls away from the man who has no center because he is emotionally dangerous. She needs a man with edges, with a defined shape, so she knows where he ends and she begins. Your constant availability, your relentless pursuit, doesn't feel like love to her. It feels like a threat to her own autonomy, a pressure to be the source of your existence, a burden her soul is not designed to carry. The dynamic of attraction is built on emotional polarity. Your masculine core is the calm, unwavering pole, and her feminine essence is the flowing, dynamic, sometimes chaotic energy that dances around it. When you become needy, anxious, and reactive, you abandon your pole. You enter her world of emotional flux, and the polarity collapses. Two similar poles repel. There is no tension, no spark, no attraction. For her to feel safe enough to surrender to her own feminine energy, she must trust that your masculine foundation will hold. Your calm is the container for her chaos. Your presence is the silent permission for her to be fully herself, knowing she will not overwhelm you. When you chase, you are asking her to be the container for times, your time's chaos, reversing the natural polarity and extinguishing the very flame you seek. You must understand that her respect is not something she gives you like a gift. It is an involuntary state that you evoke times in her asterisk. It's a feeling that settles in her body when she is around you. It's the subtle relaxation of her shoulders, the slowing of her breath, the feeling that she can finally let go because you are in control of yourself. It is the opposite of the anxiety she feels around the man who is constantly trying to impress her, the man whose every action is a silent plea for validation. She cannot logically talk herself into respecting a man whose presence makes her nervous system feel unsafe. Her body knows the truth long before her conscious mind does. Your internal state of calm, self-possession is not a tactic. It is the fundamental prerequisite for her genuine, deep-seated respect. And here is the final, most crucial turn of the key. You have been looking for the reason in her mysterious wiring, in her complex emotional world. But the entire mechanism is a mirror. She is simply and brutally reflecting your own relationship with yourself. She respects your time only after you have demonstrated that you respect your time first. She honors your boundaries only after you have proven that they are non-negotiable for times you asterisk. She feels safe in your presence only after you have created a deep sense of safety within your own soul. The entire quest to understand her why was always a journey back to yourself. You were looking for the secret to unlocking her respect, but the secret was always about forging a man that you yourself could respect, completely and without condition. So the silence arrives. It descends not like a gentle blanket, but like a sheet of ice, thin and fragile at first, then hardening with every passing hour. The immature man panics. He feels the cold and immediately tries to generate heat, sending a barrage of texts, questions, and reassurances that only reveal the frantic shivering of his own insecurity. He mistakes the silence for a void and rushes to fill it, becoming the source of the very pressure that suffocates her. But the centered man does something radically different. He breathes. He observes the silence not as an absence, but as a presence. He feels the pull of his own anxiety, that desperate urge to fix things, and he allows it to pass through him without action. He understands that the water only becomes clear when you stop stirring it. His first move is to become utterly still, a silent observer of the storm within himself. This stillness is not a tactic. It is a reflection of his reality. The man whose world crumbles when a woman goes quiet is a man who had no world to begin with. The ideal masculine reaction is to continue building. He does not sit by the phone waiting for the verdict of her reply. He returns to his work, to his training, to his reading, to the mission that defines him. His life has its own momentum, its own gravitational pull, completely independent of her orbit. This is the most powerful message you can send, and you send it without sending anything at all. You are demonstrating through your unwavering focus that your emotional state is not for sale. It is not a commodity to be traded for her attention. She feels this. She feels your absence not as a needy void, but as a solid object, the shape of a life being lived with purpose. When she does return, and she often will, her re-engagement is met not with a flood of desperate relief, but with a calm, grounded warmth. The boy who was starving for her attention celebrates her return like a man finding an oasis in the desert, showering her with an energy that screams, "I was nothing without you." The man, however, simply welcomes her back to a world that was already complete. His response is measured, authentic. He doesn't punish her for the distance, nor does he reward it with an over-the-top display of enthusiasm. He simply matches her energy, perhaps even a touch less, communicating that her presence is a wonderful addition to his life, but not the central pillar holding it up. This calm consistency is what her nervous system registers as safety, as strength, as a reality she can finally relax into. He learns to see her emotional states as weather patterns, not as personal judgments. Her moods are like clouds passing through the vast, unchanging sky of his own awareness. He does not try to argue with the rain or command the sun to appear. He simply remains the sky. This is the essence of non-resistance. The desperate man tries to control the weather, an exhausting and impossible task that only reveals his powerlessness. The centered man builds a shelter so strong that the weather ceases to matter. This is a profound shift in perspective. You don't attract by chasing, you attract by becoming still enough to be seen. Her respect flows into the space you create with your own self-possession. It is the natural consequence of her witnessing a man who is not afraid of her storms, because he has already learned to be at peace with his own. This internal mastery is most visible when a boundary is tested. She pushes, perhaps subtly, against a no you have delivered. Are you sure you can't just for a little while? The reactive man immediately feels the pressure to justify, to explain, to soften his stance. He sees the boundary as a potential point of conflict to be managed. The solid man sees the boundary as a pillar of his own reality. He holds it not with aggression, but with a quiet, unshakable ease. His no is complete. It requires no further defense, because it is not an opinion, it is a fact of his world. He can offer an alternative, he can express his desire to see her at another time, but the pillar itself does not move. He is teaching her, through action, that his word is bond, and his reality is not negotiable. Ultimately, you will see the change not in her words, but in her eyes. It's a subtle shift from a look of assessment to a look of surrender. Her body language softens. The tension leaves her shoulders when she is with you. She stops testing the walls because she has found the center of the room. This is the moment her respect truly crystallizes, moving from a conscious thought to a deep, visceral feeling of safety. The chase is over not because you caught her, but because you became a destination. You are no longer the anxious boy trying to prove his worth, but the calm man whose worth is self-evident. You have not won a game. You have simply become the man whose presence is the prize. This is the silent power that she cannot resist, because it mirrors the very peace she has been searching for in herself. And so you arrive at the final turn. You came here seeking the keys to her kingdom, hoping to unlock the complex machinery of her mind. But you discovered the map was always pointing back to you. We began with a paradox. She pulls away not because she feels nothing, but because she feels too much. Now you see the truth. She was feeling too much of your time's uncertainty, too much of your need, too much of the empty space where your solid core should have been. Her withdrawal was never a measure of her interest in you. It was a measure of your connection to yourself. Every test, every silence, every step back was her subconscious mind desperately searching for your foundation and finding only shifting sand. Her behavior was never the problem to be solved. It was the mirror showing you the man you had yet to become. This is where the game ends. The entire cycle of chasing and retreating, of analyzing and reacting, dissolves the moment you understand it was a game you were only playing with yourself. Her respect was never the prize at the end of a maze. It is the natural climate that surrounds a man who has built his own world. She doesn't want your explanations for why you are worthy. She wants to feel the undeniable stability of your presence. She doesn't need you to decode her moods. She needs you to hold your own. When you stop reacting to her emotional weather, you are not ignoring her. You are finally giving her the one thing she has been searching for, a fixed point in her universe, a quiet certainty that proves you are not another storm, but the calm, unshakable ground beneath her feet. The transformation is not about learning to conquer her. It is about becoming a destination. You must stop being the frantic ship chasing another through the fog and become the lighthouse. The lighthouse does not chase. It does not plead. It does not alter its light for any single vessel. It simply stands, rooted in its own foundation, and shines its unwavering light into the darkness. Its power is not in its pursuit, but in its presence. When you are so deeply rooted in your own purpose, in your own principles, in your own reality, you become that lighthouse. Her respect is her silent, instinctual decision to orient herself by your light. You don't attract by chasing, you attract by becoming so still, so certain, so completely yourself that you are finally seen. This is the freedom you've been seeking. It was never hidden in her responses, but in your own soul. The path to her respect was always a journey back to your own. You stop needing to understand her completely when you are completely certain of yourself. The man she cannot help but respect is the man who has first built a character that he himself profoundly respects, without condition and without her permission. The chase is over not because you caught her, but because you finally stopped running from yourself. Look at her now, through these new eyes. See the mirror she has been for you. See the reflection of the man you are now choosing to build. Comment what you now see in her that you couldn't before.